exactly like asking an ordinary question from the schoolmaster. The schoolmasters in the modern days are paid agents for giving some information, but the spiritual master is not a paid agent, nor can he impart instruction without being authorized. In the Bhagavad Gita chapter 4 verse 34, the process of understanding transcendental knowledge is directed as follows. Tadvadi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshati te jnanam jnaninastatvadarshanaha. Arjuna was advised to receive transcendental knowledge from the realized person by surrender, questions, and service. Receiving transcendental knowledge is not like exchanging dollars. Such knowledge has to be received by service to the spiritual master. As Brahmaji received the knowledge directly from the Lord by satisfying him fully, similarly, one has to receive the transcendental knowledge from the spiritual master by satisfying him. The spiritual master's satisfaction is the means of assimilating transcendental knowledge. One cannot understand transcendental knowledge simply by becoming a grammarian. The Vedas declare, Shvetashvata Upanishad chapter 6, verse 23, Yasya deve parabhaktir yata deve tata guru tasyaite katita hyarta prakashante mahatmana, which means only unto one who has unflinching devotion to the Lord and to the spiritual master does transcendental knowledge become automatically revealed. Unquote. Such relationship between the disciple and the spiritual master is eternal. One who is now the disciple is the next spiritual master. And one cannot be a bona fide and authorized spiritual master unless one has been strictly obedient to his spiritual master. Brahmaji, as a disciple of the Supreme Lord, received the real knowledge and imparted it to his dear disciple Narada. And similarly, Narada, as spiritual master, handed over this knowledge to Vyas, and so on. Therefore, the so-called formal spiritual master and disciple are not facsimiles of Brahma and Narada, or Narada and Vyas. The relationship between Brahma and Narada is reality, while the so-called formality is the relation between the cheater and cheated. It is clearly mentioned herewith that Narada is not only well-behaved, meek, and obedient, but also self-controlled. One who is not self-controlled, especially in sex life, can become neither a disciple nor a spiritual master. One must have disciplinary training in controlling speaking, anger, the tongue, the mind, the belly, and the genitals. One who has controlled the particular senses mentioned above is called a Goswami. Without becoming a Goswami, one can become neither a disciple nor a spiritual master. The so-called spiritual master without sense control is certainly the cheater, and the disciple of such a so-called spiritual master is the cheated. One should not think of Brahmaji as a dead great-grandfather, as we have experience on this planet. He is the oldest great-grandfather, and he is still living. And Narada is also living. The age of the inhabitants of the Brahmaloka planet is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. The inhabitants of the small planet Earth can hardly calculate even the duration of one day of Brahma. Tushtam nishamya pitaram lokanam prapitamaham devarshi paripapracha bhavanyan manuprichati. The great sage Narada also inquired in detail from his father Brahma, the great-grandfather of all the universe, after seeing him well satisfied. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Niravishesha Shunyavadi Pastitya Deshatarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyas cha kripa sindubhya eva cha, patitanam pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ekadasi Vrata ki jai, Gita Jayanti ki jai. Yes, so the principle being described here about relationship, first of all, relationship with the spiritual master, but then who is the spiritual master? How someone can become a spiritual master. And not just become a spiritual master, but how one can first of all become a disciple. So these things are discussed here. And of course it's very relevant in terms of today being the Gita Jayanti, the day Lord Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. So, of course, we all know very well it's something which we discuss so regularly. We all know very well the situation at the beginning of the Gita Jayanti day and how things seemed or how things were and the problems faced in that situation on the Gita Jayanti day. That Arjuna was not really willing initially to take the role, or not just take a role, but to become a bona fide disciple. We do know that in the beginning of the second chapter, Arjuna appeared to surrender to Krishna. And Arjuna, well, if you can bear with me for a moment, I'll read the verse. Arjuna presented himself that, look at me, here I am a bona fide disciple, so please instruct me and, that's what I want. This is found in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, what is it, verse 9? No, it's not. Verse 6? What verse is it? Oops. Let me just locate the verse. What is it? 7. It's 7. Excuse me. Yes, Arjuna appears to surrender. Karpanya doshopahata subhava prichami tvam dharma samudacheta yachtrayasya nishitam bruhitan me shishyaste ham sadimam tvam prapanam. Now I'm confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I'm asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I'm your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. Shishyas te hum. Shishyas, a disciple, te, of you, aham, I am. I am now your disciple. So, sadimam, please instruct me, because look at me. Tvam prapanam, I'm surrendered to you. Sounds good, doesn't it? Sounds excellent. Only problem is that Arjuna then turns around and says, yes, all these things. I'm your disciple, a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me, but just don't tell me to fight. Yeah. Anything else is fine. But not fighting. No, please, don't say that. So therefore, even though it appears good, it appears to be that a crucial point has been reached, which is going to change the whole rather sort of, what would you say, sentimentally charged, emotionally charged situation. But actually haven't quite reached that point yet. And for us, we are, of course, how many of us? Practically, actually, all of us. Except the two girls, I don't know where they went, and of course Krishna Kripa, but we're all initiated disciples, every single one of us. Look at us, yeah. But we should understand that our positions as disciples, there are different degrees, you could say. There are different degrees. And at this point, Arjuna, he feels that, yes, this is it. I've reached this point. But he hasn't really. He's only sort of, you could say, partially reached the point. At least he has partially reached the point, which is better than nothing. But he has not actually reached the crucial point of real surrender. That's going to come later on. It will come, but quite a bit later. Ultimately, only in the 10th chapter. Means, you could say more than halfway through the Bhagavad Gita, or right around the halfway point. So, yes, for us, we're all initiated devotees. We're all initiated disciples. Disciple meaning one who has accepted the discipline of the spiritual master. But there are degrees. There are degrees of acceptance. Anyway, that of course, that's true. That's very true. And even the degree of acceptance may change on a day-to-day basis, and it may even change on a moment-to-moment basis as we go through life and all the situations of life. But still, the basic idea is that it is crucial that we actually become disciples and become fixed as disciples. And who is disciple? Well, Prabhupada explains here, one who is strictly obedient to the spiritual master is the one who has become a disciple, or at least let us say, become fully a disciple. Yes. And then such a person who has become fully a disciple can then become a spiritual master and give direction to others who are disciples or who are in the process themselves of becoming disciples, and help them to become disciples step by step. Yes, it is not a simple thing. It's an extremely deep thing. At least, particularly ultimately, it's an extremely deep thing, becoming a disciple and then becoming a spiritual master. It's an extremely deep thing. And it is not to be achieved, or artificial manifestations are not acceptable. Prabhupada mentions here that there is such a thing as a formal spiritual master and a formal disciple. Like, particularly hereditary in the Hindu system, there is the system that maybe it happened to some of you, that when you reached a certain point in life, like sort of 10 or 11 or something like that? 7, well, it depends, but let's say 7. Then the formal spiritual master comes and gives you Gayatri, right? The first line of Gayatri, and gives you a sacred thread, and, as they say, Haribol. That's it. You're there. You have been initiated. But unfortunately, this is, it's just a formality. And as Prabhupada puts it, it's really just an interaction between a cheater and a cheated. Yes, because the formal spiritual master is not equipped in terms of understanding, in terms of being absorbed in spiritual life. The spiritual master, that formal spiritual master is not equipped to function as a spiritual master and actually help the so-called disciple. And the so-called disciple, usually they, particularly if they are 7, did it happen to you? Yes. We have a veteran of the system. Did it happen to you? Did it happen to you? Did it happen to you? At the age of 7 or something? It happened to him too. Did it happen to you, ladies? You got saved, as they say. You got saved from being saved. Yeah. But anyway, you know that this goes on, at least in certain circles. But particularly when you're 7, anyway, what can you say? When you're 7, I mean, you could be less qualified if you were 6 or 5, but it would be hard to really be so much less qualified to actually become a disciple. So what's required is realization through association with the spiritual master, through association with the devotees in general, through association by having been engaged and being engaged in devotional service. So realization comes to the point, not just as Arjuna is saying here, Shishyaste ham sadimam tvam prapanam. Now I'm your disciple and the soul surrendered to you. But, I'll be surrendered to you as long as you don't tell me to fight. Yeah. You want me to do something else? I'll do it. Yes. But not fight. So in the end, just shortly after this point, later in the 2nd chapter, Arjuna basically sits down. He becomes so frustrated and bewildered and overwhelmed emotionally, materially, that he sits down in the back of the chariot and says, listen, Krishna, you want this battle fought? You want these people killed? Go ahead. I'm going to sit down here. I'm going to take rest. Wake me up when it's all over. Just come and fetch me when it's all over, and I will clap. I will applaud it. You achieved your goal. But for me, no. So this sort of thing happens on the path towards becoming a real disciple. Srila Prabhupada made the point that sometimes a spiritual master, Prabhupada here quotes chapter 4, verse 34 of Bhagavad Gita, famous verse. If you want to learn the truth, just inquire from a spiritual master. Ask questions, render service. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge to you because they've seen the truth. So in the purport there, among other things, Srila Prabhupada makes the point that the disciple or the would-be disciple or the sort of becoming a disciple person must pass the test of the spiritual master. Do you remember that, devotees? Are you familiar with that purport? The verse, I'm sure you're familiar with the verse, but the purport. You have to pass the test of the spiritual master. Means the spiritual master doesn't always just pat you on the head and say, good devotee, nice devotee. The spiritual master pushes the disciple. Yes. And sometimes the spiritual master, in the process of pushing the disciple to become more fully disciple-like, sometimes the spiritual master tests the disciple by instructing the disciple to do something that the disciple may not be comfortable doing, or even the disciple may be quite convinced that he or she is not capable of doing. Yes. So this is a test. But of course we should understand, we did mention, Prabhupada says, we have to pass the test of the spiritual master. When the test comes, then we must understand, this is a test. This is now something to sort of keep me on my toes, as they say, or to really get me focused and really get me out of my nice little comfort zone and really get me to the point of actually being a surrendered soul, which Arjuna is claiming to be, but he's going through a sort of, what would you call it? Not exactly a cathartic situation, but he's going through a very, compared to what he's come from, of extreme emotion and weakness and pettiness, he's sort of been thrown into a type of deep end, but he's not entirely ready for it. Therefore, he says the right things. And people might think, well done, Arjuna, you got it. But he hasn't got it, because he turns around and then says that I'm not going to do it. But only later does he actually decide, like in a really final way, that I am actually going to do it, come what may, whatever the cost, however difficult, doesn't matter, I'm going to do it. Yes, so therefore, as disciples, or even you could say aspiring disciples ourselves, we have to really be willing and hopefully enthusiastic, but at least willing to accept the test. And what does the test mean? It means now I have to, as Prabhupada says, now I have to accept the discipline and control my speaking, my anger, my tongue, my mind, my belly, and my genitals. I have to control all those things and focus and get engaged, really get engaged in the particular service that I have been given by the spiritual master, either directly or indirectly. And in that way, become a qualified disciple, or even Prabhupada says, a Goswami. Of course, that is reminiscent. What's it reminiscent of in one other of Prabhupada's books? Tell me. Which verse? In which book? That's right. Nectar of Instruction, verse 1. Right. It's reminiscent. It's basically repeating the same thing. That this is how you become a few things. First thing is a qualified disciple. Next thing is a Goswami. And you might think, who, me? Goswami? Don't know about that. But actually a Goswami. And then finally, a spiritual master. And the interesting thing, of course, and the important thing, is that for all of us, we have taken up the process of Krishna consciousness, all of us. Like all of us, at least those who I can see at present, all of us are initiated disciples of somebody or other. Yeah. But the thing is, if we don't do that, you can't become a proper disciple. You'll be sort of, a partial disciple, like Arjuna is at this point, that yes, I'm a disciple, but hang on a minute. Wait a minute, let me just rethink a bit. Yeah. So we can't become proper disciples, which is the first step. The first step is to become proper disciple. And if we don't become proper disciples, then devotees, until we do become, we are doomed to stay in this, what sort of word to use without having to use bad language, but this horrible material world. Yeah. This material world, which, if you look at it carefully enough with a clear enough intelligence, you'll see it is simply ghastly. It is simply ghastly. And to be stuck in it, as we have been, but to continue to be stuck in it, it is kind of a type of, I don't know what you call it, not exactly a death sentence, but it's a very heavy sentence, prison sentence, which will cause us a lot of pain. And of course, in one sense, a type of bottom line is, who wants that sort of pain? No intelligent person, no real person wants that type of pain. But until we become really qualified disciples, then we're going to be forced, at least from time to time, into painful situations of really deep pain. Really deep pain. So therefore, this verse in purport is extremely relevant and important for us as aspiring devotees. But in terms of Gita Jayanti, it's just the right verse to look at. Yes. So anyway, today's Gita Jayanti. They say it's the day Lord Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita. And what an extremely important day. Of great mercy, Arjuna got the mercy. First of all, he was hesitant to really accept it fully, but eventually he did. When he heard enough, he had to hear again and again and again and again. Basically, Krishna, you could say, was repeating the same points. Is it Krishna? Basically, Krishna was repeating in different language the same points until in the 10th chapter Arjuna actually surrenders in fact, and he really, that's it. Yes. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any comments? Questions? Comments?
The process of surrendering is very stepwise.
Yeah.
Several levels.
Step by step, there are degrees.
When we become initiated, first initiation, it's the test or the lucky. It's just very basic.
It's generally fairly basic. Generally. But at least it's, one has moved forward to some degree. But then by the time of second initiation, the degree is greater. Should be. Because, for example, developing the qualities of a Brahmin, because second initiation is Brahminical, Brahmin initiation. So if you're actually developing those qualities, in fact, then they will you'll naturally feel more impelled, just naturally, not having to think about it, but just naturally, you will move in that direction further, and step by step from that point on also further. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ekadasi Vrata ki jai. Shri Gita Jayanti ki jai.